This call is from a correction facility and is subject to monitoring and recording. Thank you for using GTL.
Hey, what's up, bro?
Hey, bro, what you doing?
Yeah, I just wanted to ask some questions on the condition that you're going through.
I mean, bro, we getting over sentenced for petty crimes. You know what I'm saying? Break up homes, break up families. People go through mental issues. I mean, I'm at a lower level, so everybody know they ready to go home.
Do you want me to tell anybody in the family anything for you?
Just tell them keep fighting for me, man. Pushing for that herb release. Get me on out here and help me get back to the side so I can do the things that's necessary to take care of me and my family.
Yes, thank you. Oh, yes, Lord. Thank you, Jesus, for your presence with us in worship this morning. Thank you. Now praise Him. Yeah.
Good morning, church. And I didn't plan to say anything or speak till you know who asked. Almost 20 years ago, this one, my son, got in trouble. But I thought the criminal justice system was fair. I learned quickly that it was not. It took my son to be incarcerated almost 19 years. If I didn't do anything, I learned. I read and I learned about the system. There was no way in any of my adult life did I think that I would be doing any work at all with criminal justice reform. Not until this happened to my son. The crime versus the amount of time. All these years, almost 19 years, he sat in a prison, 4 years in solitary confinement. I cried. He lost all the rest of his 20s. He lost all of his 30s. They took his life away. They took years away from him. He did what he had to do to survive. And he got a conditional pardon from the governor. He has his rights restored.
For too many people, jails and prisons are out of sight and out of mind. So they see what they want to see and not what's actually happening. Unlike other agencies where they're directly responsible either to the legislature or the governor, there's not much accountability for the Department of Corrections. Their budget is twice the size of the budget for the entire city of Richmond to operate.
My name is Vishal Agraharkar, and I work at the ACLU of Virginia. I'm a senior staff attorney there. We get somewhere between 2,000 and 3,000 intakes a year. About 60% of them actually are from people who are incarcerated. By far the largest single complainee that we get reports from is the Department of Corrections and their facilities and their wardens and their officers.
Virginia has an incarceration rate of 749 per 100,000 people, meaning that it locks up a higher percentage of people than any other democracy on earth.
Our only solution to all of societal ills including mental health, including it's all to incarcerate those who break the rules.
Over 128,000 Virginians are currently struggling with this system. I think about how their family is affected. If one person has 3 to 4 family members that they're intimately connected with, that's over 500,000 Virginians who are intimately connected with the criminal justice system. That is more than the population of Virginia Beach.
Most people in prison are not innocent of the crimes that they are convicted of. That said, the reactions to those crimes can still be extreme, can still be rooted in dehumanization that is clear in this country, is deeply embedded in a racist history that's a part of a through line that uses dehumanization as a pretext to treat Black residents in particular a certain way and legitimates the state being able to disappear them from their homes and their communities for very long periods of time.
Even though Black people and people of color tend to still be the most targeted in terms of incarceration in general, there are a lot of people going to prison nowadays. And those people are not all Black, and they're not all of color.
It's high time that we restore these principles of accountability and responsibility to our justice system here in Virginia.
Virginia doesn't really have parole. It was abolished under Governor Allen in the 90s. I mean, to not have parole means you don't have hope.
Machinery that brings people into the prison system, you don't really realize just how flawed and deeply flawed those systems are, and sometimes how little empathy the people in charge of those systems have for those who are incarcerated.
I don't want anybody to go through the things that I've gone through. And so whatever I learn, I believe in sharing, and I believed in sharing it with others. We began a support group hosting monthly meetings. We still got a long way to go. We got parole, we got expungement, we got solitary confinement, we have pardons, we have too many other issues, and then we have the day-to-day prison operations, the way our loved ones are treated while they're incarcerated. We don't have time. I paid $7,000 to get the court reports to show people, but besides that journalist that stay here, nobody takes the time to read it. Then my son he worked in the coal mines, he had 6 surgeries on his hand, then had trouble with his knee, and the doctors would not help him get off of the OxyContin. He went to prison in 2000. He was in his 20s.
And now how old is he?
He's 51. He's 51. And the court system, they do what they want to. I didn't know nothing about the laws. I thought it was all good. Well, I know our judges, our courts are not right. You know, they don't care.
When you examine kind of the some of these doctrines and some of these laws that make it so hard for people to kind of address the concerns that they have, that's the impression that you get, that even the people in charge of examining these claims are not really seeing them as fully human.
It's the harsh conditions that people are often subjected to, typically subjected to into this country, are also not fairly, not appropriately, not constitutionally, but a part of the popular imagination when it comes to, what it means to be imprisoned. This dehumanized response. So why is dehumanization such a part of the criminal legal system? It is built upon the racial caste system that legitimized slavery, that legitimized Jim Crow, and that now legitimizes very extreme reactions to crime breaking.
I'm going home, oh yes, I'm going home, oh yes, I'm going home, Lord, Lord, I'm going home, I'm going home, Lord, Lord, I'm going home. My old father's crying, my old father's crying.
Which should be recognized within the criminal legal system, within Virginia's criminal legal system, is this capacity for full humanity that people inside are capable of experiencing, and the warehousing of them for perpetual punishment doesn't recognize that full capacity.
I'm going home.
I ride through this city every day, and this reminds me of where I used to be. And I'm so grateful. I'm actually going out on the street, and what I like to do is go out and basically survey folks, take a straw poll. Man, this is all about quality of life. We can talk about reentry and recidivism rates and all those things, but even though folks may not be going back to prisons, and that's another story, but how is their quality of life?
I entered the school to prison pipeline at the age of 15 as an honor roll student in high school my freshman year. And the following year, I fell off a cliff and find myself incarcerated in a juvenile facility. Approximately 15 years of my life was spent inside, either jail, prison, or a lot of institutions. I battled drug addiction and homelessness throughout the entire time. So inside the prisons, I experienced trauma and developed these skills to be inside where I was an artist. So I was an artist most places I went. Everybody knows who these are. Malcolm, Obama, and Martin. The triumphant. These are, oh yes. Yeah, all these pictures were done inside. I even had my mark on here. I didn't even put my signature. I was just doodling one day, and it's the image that came in my head. I know it's not a great, it's kind of depressing. It can make you angry, but it was just how I felt. Most people would say, why are you here? Most people, why are you in prison? You don't seem like the type of guy that should be in prison. And so I think prisoners and folks in the criminal justice system are given a bad shape. Came to a life change. I had to make a decision. And from May 20th of 2010, from that point on, I dedicated my life to helping others and found myself on a path that brought me right into community organizing. So I feel as though it's my responsibility to share my story and expose some of these things and change the narrative. It's going to take a mass effort, a public consensus to move the way we need to in terms of incarceration. We have to change a lot of these false narratives around incarceration and prisons.
Crime, cops and robbers, that type of reporting has always been in the fabric of the American society.
Lane and Candace, criminologists have been sounding the alarm about rising violent crime rates.
The narrative around how we talk about responses to crime complicate the social policies that govern responses to crime.
13 News Now investigates life inside Virginia's prisons.
Well, David, we've seen what happens when prisons are short-staffed. Inmates try to take advantage.
There's just a range of dog whistling that, depending on who is using the language, the context of the conversation, is reinforcing people's bias or people's fears around a specific issue.
A lot of times they do call the lawyer of the person who is been accused of the crime. For good reason, those folks cannot speak because it can compromise their case. So what does the reporter go on? The law enforcement, as well as the DA's office, all of them, they're really good at using the media to tell their narrative.
Officer after officer got in touch with us, and they want everyone to know they're not the only ones at risk in this situation. The public is as well.
Public safety a lot of times is only seen through one lens, and that is the lens of law enforcement. But then when it's time, when that person is incarcerated or when that person has gotten an outlandish sentence, it becomes difficult to reach them, right? Getting an interview with someone who's incarcerated is difficult. When you have that type of narrative over and over again, you get it in your daily news, you get it in your entertainment, it leaves very little room to think of a person who is incarcerated as more than as a human being and not just this evil person who needs to be put away. Get educated about actual statistics and data on recidivism and what's actually happening in the criminal justice system, because those one story or two stories can't be the full picture.
It's truly my pleasure to have the opportunity to address you as you embark on your careers in corrections. Some will argue that corrections is the last stop along the criminal justice continuum. But I will argue that in some instances, we are the first line of defense. With you, our newest employees, we expect to continue in that tradition. Thank you very much, and Godspeed to you.
Everybody get busy one time.
I'm Cameron Washington. I'm the legal intake assistant at the ACLU of Virginia. We receive several thousand letters a year, and I go through them one by one and try to make sense of them, what the person writing the letter would like for us to do for them, if we can do anything for them. And after I ask those initial questions, I sort of decide what to do next. The vast majority of our intakes come from incarcerated individuals. So many things take place here that aren't well known, and being that our voices are silenced allows this institutional facilities administration to get away with the inhumane treatment of all inmates housed here.
To whom it may concern, I am an incarcerated, disabled veteran in the Commonwealth of Virginia. An employee of the Department of Corrections refused to provide care and prosthetics for the disability. The employee asserts medical care expired due to age and incarceration.
They look at us as though we are some animals in a zoo. I even heard on several occasions such statements as, "You guys need to start fighting or something because we don't have anything to do." And, "Our dogs are bored. When are you guys going to give them something to sink their teeth into?" These are the types of people that have been put in positions of authority over people's lives.
Can your organization help me to get free from this Virginia prison system? Can your organization help me expose the violations of the U.S. Bill of Rights by the Virginia plantation prison system?
I was physically beaten and abused, refused food, harassed verbally, and completely mishandled. I was bleeding bad, blood in chunks, and my tooth was chipped, and days after, black and green and purple on my toes and fingers from officers trying to break them. My face is burn marks from being rubbed back and forth on concrete.
One morning I complained about my food being burnt. I was maced in the face, punched in the nose. It busted my nose and I was bleeding everywhere. I tried to file a criminal complaint and they shipped me to another facility where I tried again to file a criminal complaint. And they told me he was just doing his job.
I need to get out of prison. I have a clean prison record. The parole board has been turning me down since March of 1999.
The jail was violating my civil rights while I was housed there. I was beaten very badly while I was shackled and cuffed behind my back. Also, I was in a restraint chain. I was headbutted.
They know that their lie will always be taken as truth, and the prisoner's truth will always be taken as a lie.
We are suffering. Help us to seek justice. May your heart be moved to do the right thing. Thank you, and God bless.
Right now, we rely largely on the Department of Corrections to tell us what the Department of Corrections is doing right and doing wrong by their telling not doing anything wrong. We're a small staff and we get a lot of complaints and we can only take on maybe 1 or 2 or 3 cases related to prisons and jails a year. I would say the largest component of complaints against the Department of Corrections have to do with medical care and mental health care, and then segregation and solitary confinement and the conditions in those facilities. And then after that, they can range the gamut, all kinds of issues that people are having on the inside. For a lot of people, it's virtually impossible to bring a lawsuit. And it's often impossible to get outside help, get attorney help, because unless you're an organization like ours that is able to take on these lawsuits essentially for free, it can be hard just to even get into the courthouse door. If they say that a correctional officer did something bad to them and they don't have proof, which they almost certainly don't, then they're not going to be believed, and then they're potentially putting themselves at risk for retaliation because they might now be marked as a troublemaker. I think we need meaningful and independent oversight, and people who can go in and say, here's actually what's happening. This is what people who are incarcerated are telling me, and inform the public, inform the legislature and the legislators so that they can better perform their duty providing oversight to prisons.
I was so naive to the whole criminal justice system. I thought that all things, was going to be fair. And even with the amount of time that they had given you, which was over the guidelines, now they're going to put you in a prison that's locked down. Your very first experience in prison is to be locked down for 23 hours a day. I just couldn't imagine, I couldn't even comprehend what type of a place or what this was going to be about. So I want to know from you, how did you survive?
But in there, it's not the walls. It's not nothing physical, because the physical things we can all adapt to as human beings.
Mm-hmm.
It's being in a world where you're treated like an animal every day. You look to your left, you look to your right, you look up, you look down. Everyone. Nobody in there cares about you. Like, sometimes as a human being, you try to reminisce or think back to your most earliest childhood memory. And as you get older, those memories start to fade away. That's probably one of the most.
It's okay. It's okay. It's okay. I'm here. You're here. You're here. It's okay. Remember, this is the first time.
Because as a human being, excuse me, you never want to lose sense of your soul. You never want to lose sense or feeling that you're a human being. And those prison walls have been designed, not just in Virginia, across the world, to make you lose that. Tear something from you. I guess that's why I'm so distant now with people. Because I'm still trying to find my way back.
Justice has always been a part of my life. Both of my parents were incarcerated when I was 10 years old. I was wrongfully convicted of a crime in 2004. And in my heart of hearts, I know that I am innocent and I've always maintained my innocence. But at the end of 3 days, being the only Black person in a courtroom, none of that mattered. When people see that conviction in black and white on paper, they don't care that I'm innocent. They don't care that my life was ripped away from me. And it got me to a point where I wanted to fight against this system. And I became a barber. Everybody knows that your barber is like your therapist. Your hairstylist is like your therapist. So I met so many people who had this felony conviction in common with me. And it was just mind-blowing to me that so many people have this thing in common and there's no relief. I want to make sure that women feel loved and special once they have gone through those processes, because it is trauma. It's a harrowing experience to be incarcerated and leave the community and leave family. We definitely need to figure out a better way to support those people as they're coming home, because women, they're expected to come home and make it happen. Come home and be the head of the household again with little to no support.
Talking about transitional housing, we hear about a lot of the transitional housing for men, but I don't really hear a lot about it for women.
I think I know maybe 2 places.
You know, we have a lot of programs for fathers and guys who are coming home, but I noticed like there are not a lot of resources for women who are being released from prisons in Virginia. It's a big need in our community. What about like integration back with families and children? You don't really hear about that much either. And you know, even though my partner has been out now for over 15 years, we still as a family feel the impact to his incarceration. You know, we're often as women just kind of discounted in all the situations when we're talking about incarceration. We don't get the same level of respect in the situation. Whether you are the partner or you are the person who has been incarcerated, we end up having to make more out of less.
The experts on the subject matter at this point are people who have gone through the processes and gone through the systems and survived. We have to be the voices who make the changes in these systems now.
I was angry about a system that was broken. I thought was broken at the time, but as we all know, it works just as it's supposed to work.
I feel that when I walk into these buildings where I was never designed to be, that I am taking position to fight against what has been designed to break me for years.
Well, thank you for taking the time to meet with us. We really wanted to meet and talk about 2022 and DOC oversight and women in incarceration. The lack of support and resources for women who are incarcerated and women who are coming home from incarceration.
You can see, based on who's put bills in and how people have voted, that it is not a partisan issue. Everybody's political views and their policy views are shaped by what they know. And if you don't know what's actually happening in the prison system, then you're going to legislate based on stereotype.
People from all different types of demographics fight criminal justice reform. And they're doing it because they feel like it's really about public safety.
With my signature on this legislation, we're sending an unmistakable message to criminals or anyone who might be contemplating criminal activity. And that message is, do not commit crime in Virginia. We'll no longer tolerate it.
I can stop in the middle, right? People who are committing crimes don't necessarily know about these laws and bills that are being signed.
Got special pens for this. This is special session, special pens.
You can't solve crime with the flick of a pen. You can't arrest your way out of the problems of poverty and education and mental illness and lack of employment. Over-incarcerating, giving excessive sentencing, ending parole, all of that doesn't solve the issue that they seek to solve. And we're seeing the effects of that today.
They work for you. They were elected, even if you didn't vote them in, they were elected by the people, by your community.
Well, I would hope that Virginia legislators are looking seriously at decarceration efforts and ways to significantly reduce the number of people in prison given the growth over the last 30 to 40 years.
Well, and I'll keep working on it. And but what is very helpful, you put a face and many voices behind the problem, and we need to see and hear that here, because a big part of the problem is, and you said it, out of sight, out of mind.
It is really important for people to understand that if you are in these positions of power, you should not forget people who can't show up like everyone else shows up.
If we look at injustice, we have a righteous indignation. When we see something done wrong, we ought to feel bad about it. We ought not to go along with it. We ought to talk about it. Jesus talked about it. He didn't tell people how much they should go to church. He said we should feed those who are hungry. He said you should clothe those who are naked. You should visit those who are in prison. You should welcome the stranger. That's what he was saying. This is what we should do. That's how we become one.
Though you may be incarcerated and you may be in prison, but prison doesn't have to be inside of you. You are more than the mistake that you made. And I truly believe that. And if I believe you're more than the mistake that you made, then you should be afforded a second chance. You should be treated like a human being that you are. You are a human being first and foremost.
This is one of my favorites. I like to consider it a self-portrait. And it's basically about how I was looking forward to my resurrection. I was looking forward to coming home. It takes about 3 months to create this, being up on my bunk, but this is like one of my favorites. Breaking out, never going back.
Every experience I've had while at Red Onion was not in vain. Everything that was intended to break me physically and psychologically only turned out to do the opposite. When things happen in life, we all have the option to either conform, fold, or resist.
If a soul is left in darkness, sin will be committed. The person that committed the sin is not the guilty one, but the person that created the darkness. And we've been living in a system of oppression and of darkness all our lives. And it's our job to change the narrative and to crush all of the lies.
People who have a stake in this are fighting the fight and showing up and getting to a point where they're no longer invisible. They won't be ignored.
We have to do those uncomfortable things as advocates and legislators and community members. They're uncomfortable, but they have to be done. We have to remain hopeful that we'll get through all these struggles. I mean, that hope is what carried our ancestors and our elders and parents. Hope will make you stand up when you want to lay down. Hope will make you speak out when everybody's telling you to be quiet.
I want to believe that if people, if the public saw and heard about what we hear every day, they will back and they will support a lot of necessary changes that would move us in the direction of a different and better and more rehabilitative vision.
How can those problems be solved that doesn't erase people or disappear people or doesn't understand people's full humanity, but trying to understand exactly what can we do to be making communities safer and stronger and keep people whole.
These are human beings that we know and love and trust, and we want them out.
I'm going home, oh yes, I'm going home, oh yes, I'm going home, Lord, Lord, I'm going home, I'm going home, Lord, Lord, I'm going home. My baby sister's crying, my baby sister's crying, brother come home, Lord, Lord. Brother, come home. Brother, come home.
never come home. I'm going home, oh yes, I'm going home, oh yes, I'm going home, Lord, Lord, I'm going home, I'm going home, Lord, Lord, I'm going home. My old mother's crying, my old mother's crying, come on home, Lord, Lord, come on home, come on home, Lord, Lord, come on home. I'm going home, oh yes, I'm going home, oh yes, I'm going home, Lord, Lord, I'm going home, I'm going home, Lord, Lord, I'm going home. My old father's crying, my old father's crying, come on home, Lord, Lord, come on home, come on home, Lord, Lord, come on home. I'm going home, oh yes, I'm going home, oh yes, I'm going home, Lord, Lord, I'm going home, I'm going home, Lord.